All right, well, welcome everyone to day one of the Board of Directors Workshops, Community Leadership Tactics and Conscious Cultural Tools. My name is Divya Nanduri and I'm a Public Health Associate with the Technical Assistance and Research Center at NCUIH. And joining me from the NCUIH team are Sabu Kuyumjian, a fellow Public Health Associate, Justine Vanderveen and Noel Zuelke from the comms team, and we are honored to have you all here today. We kindly ask that you place your name, organization, tribal affiliation, and title into the chat box. And in addition, we welcome any feedback you would like to provide about your webinar experience in our survey, which is also going to be posted in our chat box. And if you're here as a Board of Director workshop participant, we kindly ask that you refrain from completing the evaluation until the end of today's session. And if you are here for the DBH Community Learning Series, please also complete the workshop at the end of today's session as well. So today is day one of a two-day Board of Director workshop series, which consists of a total of 6 sessions. Our first session is Culture, Indigenous Approach to Writing Grants to Private Funders, and is also part 1 of the 3-part DBH Community Learning Series, Charting Your Course, Navigating Funding Streams to Support Your Health Programs. For those of you that are unfamiliar with NCUIH, here's a little background. The National Council of Urban Indian Health, also known as NCUIH, is the national nonprofit organization devoted to the support and development of quality, accessible, and culturally competent health and public health services for American Indians and Alaska Natives living in urban areas. NCUIH is the only national representative of the 41 Title V urban Indian organizations, also known as UIOs, under the Indian Health Service in the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. NCUIH strives to improve the health of over 70% of the AIAN populations that live in urban areas, supported by quality, accessible healthcare centers. So here's a look at today's agenda and our first session. We will end promptly at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 12 p.m. Pacific, and move into a 10-minute break for those who are staying on for the subsequent sessions. We'll begin with the welcome, which is currently happening, our little housekeeping. We'll introduce our presenters and go into our presentations, have a little breakout session activity, and then we will complete the post-survey for those who are here for the community of learning session, and then we'll adjourn to a break. So just a few things about housekeeping. As we dive into our session, here's a few things to keep in mind. This webinar is being recorded. Your mics are muted, but feel free to unmute if you would like to share anything. And you can also type your comments and questions into the chat box. There will be a breakout session activity after the presentation with instructions being provided for those. And finally, a Q&A session will be offered at the end of the session with time permitting. So here's how to ask a question. You first select chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then you type your question or comment into the chat box that will appear on the right side of your screen. To annotate, click View Options and then Annotate at the top. And we will be using the stamp function today. We will now welcome our first presenter, Gina Jackson. So please welcome Gina with heart reactions or heart emojis in the chat box. So you can use a heart reaction at the top of your screen, or you can go into the chat and use a little heart emoji. I know it's pretty confusing right now. Oh, awesome. And Gina, you may take the floor.
Hi, everyone. Uhagani, Nia Nada Binya. I'm Gina Jackson. I'm Western Shoshone and Oglala Lakota. I am the co-founder and co-CEO for the Return to the Heart Foundation. The Return to the Heart Foundation is a new foundation that was created by Native women for Native women and girls specifically. So let me tell you a little bit about our story. We were birthed last year in March during COVID. We had no idea that we would walk into the same month that a global pandemic would be happening. We had to quickly turn our plans and programming to support tribal groups that were providing protective equipment and, really just trying to save lives. It was, it's been a hard, year and a half that we've all been through. But Return to the Heart, really wanted to shine the spotlight on Native women and girls. A little bit about me. So I have been in philanthropy for probably about 8 or 9 years now. I started out with the Casey Foundation, which is an operating foundation. So a private funder who, instead of necessarily giving money out, gives staff with expertise to different groups to help strengthen and provide solutions and work with them to provide solutions. And then, so that was an amazing journey that led me to the Department of Interior under Assistant Secretary Kevin Washburn, working on the Indian Child Welfare Act guidelines and then regulations. So last year at the Casey Foundation, they put me into the Community Solutions program at the White House. Well, that was an amazing experience to be able to see, from the inside of how things work. But, going back after the Obama administration ended, and I went back to where was I going to land? Where can I make a difference? Growing up, being very close to my grandparents, like probably many of you, I learned so much about, my identity and who I am and who I will be. And for my grandparents, both, being survivors of residential schools, hearing the stories and knowing how it affected them firsthand. For example, my grandfather was not able to hug me. But of course, as a small child, I'll just crawl up right in his arms. So it didn't really matter. But learning why and understanding why, it's been a lifelong journey about how can I make a difference for Native people? Probably similar to you guys. That's why you're in this field. But so working in education, my background is a social worker. I'm an MSW, working in policy, and then now in philanthropy. I'm always looking for that angle. Where can I make the most difference? And honestly, I feel like philanthropy is is a great vehicle that we can support so many programs and people who are making a difference in their communities. So thank you for having me here today. And I'm excited to share with you about working and engaging with private funders. So Return to the Heart Foundation does not have any federal funding at all. We have been going out looking for private funding exclusively. There's so many benefits to private funding, many times unrestricted funds, operations. Those are priceless gems that, when you are working with funders who believe in you, who trust you, who have their own philosophy of trust-based philanthropy. If you haven't heard of that, that's kind of one of the newer buzz words that's out there. When funders actually trust you to make the decisions with the grant funding. So how do you, especially during a global pandemic? I mean, normally we would be out hitting the conference, circuit. We would be, doing sessions. We would be meeting people. We would be having coffee, with colleagues and funders. We have a lot of face-to-face and intimate conversations. We'd be going to event after event after event. Philanthropy is full of receptions. I think my all-time record was 4 receptions in one single night at a conference. So, but it's that networking and meeting people. So now there's no conferences that are in person. And so how do you, meet folks? How do you get ready to meet folks? Because if you met them today, are you ready? That's a big question. If you're not ready, then hopefully this session will give you some ideas and tips and steps and tools to get you ready to do that. So one of the first things that I wanted to share with you is the importance of being who you are as a Native person, as a leader of a Native focused organization. There's so many reasons why we're here today. Many times it's because of the inequality and injustices, and that we have to step up. If our organization didn't step up, who would? And so, being able to speak truth to power is so important. One of the things that was especially disturbing to me this week was reading about the US Census doing data analysis around poverty and not including tribal people. what? How could this be? How could this be possible? You know, so there's so many fights on so many levels for equality that we have to step up, because who else is going to be there? Nobody's going to step up for us. We have to step up for our own people. So being true to who you are, being able to speak truth to power, I mean, in a factual way, you know, we're not necessarily going to, you know, try to put the world of funders on a big guilt trip. But what is the truth? The truth is much of private funding, private funders in philanthropy, much of their wealth was acquired through land and resources, you know, our land and resources. And so the more that, I guess you would say, the woke folks in philanthropy are learning about it, they're starting to take some actions. So that's kind of exciting. I mean, we got a long road to go, though, honestly. We got a long road to go. But I think as an organization, being able to educate and having your talking points ready, and already knowing what you're going to say when you have that opportunity, because many times when your opportunity is a small window, and folks in philanthropy are not wanting to be asked for money. That's definitely not the first step. The first step is relationship building. And, you know, finding those folks who are aligning with you in your own values and your own vision. You know, how can you build a support network? And by support, I mean funding, funders that are going to support you in your network. So I had some good news this morning when I woke up. I was checking social media in bed because I can't get up right away. And I saw that American Indian College Fund got $5.3 million from the Bezos Family Foundation. Oh my gosh, yay, I'm so happy for them. And one of the quotes in the article, this was in Indian Country Today, was Cheryl Crazy Bull, who is the president and CEO. She said that we are pleased that our relationship has blossomed. So if you pull out of that quote, relationship blossomed. So that means that they were not just out there and somebody just gave them 5.3 million. No, it means that there was a relationship, and that relationship had to be nurtured. And it probably happened over time, probably a longer time, a lot of time. And at that point, it blossomed. So that's what it's going to take when it comes to a lot of funders who have, you know, private funds, is really building that relationship. And visibility. Are you visible? One of the things that I actually love and enjoy about, and back to this example, American Indian College Fund, they have that video where they have this like native rug, and they have like students that are just dancing, and I think it's electric powwow in the background, just like great music, eye-catching visual, you know, powerful. They're visible, you know, and that visibility definitely pays off. So here's my question to you. And if you wouldn't mind putting in your chat box, are you visible? Do you have a website? You know, can people see you? And this one is actually a poll that I'm going to ask you. If you do have a website, do you have a donate button that folks, if they're cruising by, would like to support you? Like, wow, this is a great organization. I would love to support them. Is it easy? Can you just click one or two buttons and support you? That's a big deal for private funders. One of the first things that I learned is that a lot of funders, they want everything on a silver platter. They want it to be easy to give to you. If they have to do a lot of hoops, if they have to jump through too much, those are barriers. They'll find somebody who is easy to fund. This is an example from a couple years ago. At that time, I was working for Native Americans in philanthropy, and I had a funder who was in the Northeast, who he said he was a donor advisor, so he's advising donors to where to fund. And he was like, we can't find any Native organizations who are supporting youth. And I just like floored me. I'm like, did you Google? I mean, I didn't say that, of course, but it's like, how can you not find anybody? That's like so wrong. And, we had a youth fund at that point, Generation Indigenous, that we were doing regranting. And so, he gave us the funding, but it just was like, there's visibility needs to increase across Indian country with organizations who are doing good work. And is your website like amazing, because those are small investments that can have big payoffs in the end. So great. Looks like a lot of you do have some donate buttons. So that's awesome. I want to share another example about meeting funders. Now, this is not something that can necessarily be replicated, but it's a good story. So when Return to Heart was just getting started, there was an organization who actually runs electronic media, like news magazine type website. And they used Return to the Heart, but related it to like to some work being done in like the Amazon, which, that's great that work is being uplifted, very important. But what that they used the name of our organization. And so my co-CEO, she tweeted the guy and was like, explain that, as Native people, there has always been and currently is appropriation of so much of what we have and who we are. And that, we would appreciate it if you would not use our name of our organization, or if you do, then let's talk about our organization. And the CEO, he was like taken, I guess, he apologized right away and said that he, didn't realize that, that was an overstep. And, how the question that came back was, well, how can we support you? And actually, he became one of our first multi-year big funders because, we spoke truth to power. We said, what we thought was right and wrong. And in return, we have taken him and his magazine, news outlet on a learning journey. And I was really pleased. This is just like a week ago. Like I went onto their website, and one of the things that I had saw was that they did an article called "The Hidden Messages in Reservation Dogs." The hidden climate messages in reservation dogs. So let's go to the video. I'm going to show you a quick little clip here.
Aho, young warrior. Looks as though you've tasted the white man's lead.
It's only paintballs.
I've had many brothers and sisters meet the same fate in my time.
Are you Crazy Horse or sitting?
No, I'm not one of those awesome guys. No, I'm more of your unknown warrior. Yeah, my name? William Knife Man. I was at the Battle of Little Bighorn. That's right. I didn't kill anybody, but I fought bravely. Well, I didn't actually fight. I actually didn't even get into the fight itself. But I came over that hill real rugged, like, I saw Custer like that. That yellow hair, he was sitting there. Son of the morning star, that guy right there. Fuck, I really hated him. So I went after him, but then the damn horse hit a gopher hole, fucking rolled over and squashed me. I died there. This horse actually, little shit. And now I'm meant to travel the spirit world, find lost souls like you. The spirit world, it's cold. My nipples are always hard. I'm always hungry.
Got it.
Being a warrior, it's not always easy. You and your thuggy-ass friends, what are you doing for your people? It's easy to be bad. It's hard to be a warrior with dignity. Remember that. In my time, we gave everything. We died for our people. We died for our land. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna fight for? Ah! Nah, I just fucking with you. But for real though, listen to what I said. Marinate on that. Oh. Let's go. Ha! No! Fuck.
So I show you this clip mainly because I mean it's awesome and funny, but it's also an example of what a funder's journey, you know, of learning. And now, you know, them, you know, we're not going to be the only organization. I don't even know how many organizations that they are supporting Native specifically, but you know, they are not a funder that puts out a call. They are a funder who will identify who they want to support, and then they will engage with them. So, you know, back to the values. The values are probably one of the most important things. You know, finding funders who have similar values. If you are meeting folks that it's not a good fit, it's the funding is not even going to be there. So, you know, being authentic, I feel like it's super important to, you know, say those words that you know, that you're doing. So if you are bringing ancestral knowledge to your work, then say it. If you are bringing traditional knowledge and medicines, then say it. Because it's the time right now for us to really start taking, you know, our place, you know, in the world. There's so many, you know, issues and problems and troubles that we are in, you know, as a nation and as, you know, around the globe. You know, if folks would have listened and to what we had to say about caring for the world and the earth, we wouldn't be in this situation, you know, because of all of the oppression and colonization. They lost our wisdom and teachings, you know, they weren't valued. So now it's time to turn that back. And, you know, for us specifically, we're lifting up women's roles, but whatever you're lifting up, you know, it's time for us to be real. So let's go on. I feel like time is getting short. Some really important things I want you to know. Number one is that if you can go to the next slide. Okay, that we're underfunded as Native communities. That, you know, if you divide, you know, population, you know, by philanthropic giving, we're at 0.4, so less than 0.5%, you know, as a whole of all the philanthropic dollars is going to Native population. So we're already underfunded. Even if we had parity or equality, that would probably put us at 5 times of more funding that's out there right now. So, you know, it's time. We got to reel it in. Also, that all of these funders, 100%, and even us, we're all on a learning journey. You know, for us, it's the decolonization, you know, trying to, you know, teach others as we go along, looking for those teachable moments. For that example that I gave you with the magazine, that was a teachable moment. And now they're doing good. Building allies, you know, one of the things that just makes me cringe when I hear people say that they're going to go schmooze at a conference. You know, no funder wants to be schmoozed. You know, return to the heart as a funder. We don't want to be schmoozed, but what we want and what funders want is real relationship. And, you know, as an organization, building your support network of advocates, of funders who will not just fund you, but will advocate for funding from their colleagues. So one of the things that some funders, actually a lot of funders, they want to know who's funding you. I just put a list together last week to a funder who will help us re-grant, and they wanted to know all of the funders, major funders in the last 2 years. And I had to put that together to give them, because funders listen to other funders. And if they see that somebody believes in you, that's like vouching for you. So super important that you build those allies, true relationships. You need to do your homework. You know, what's the funding landscape? How can you get on funders' radars? Are you signing up for their newsletters? Do you know, what this funding stream looks like right now? And back to the invitation only, you know, it's almost like you have to strategically plan to figure out how to get introduced to some funders who, once you're in, they will introduce you to others. So those are some important things to know. And I have some more. Oops. Now we got them all right there. Ooh, okay. So now I'm going to move right on to a tool that will help you. Now, I used to be a couple of years or a year and a half ago, I was at Native Americans in Philanthropy. But before that, it probably took 4 years in the making. I was working with my actual co-CEO back then, who was the CEO back then of Native Americans in Philanthropy, to create a web portal for information regarding funders and who's getting grants specifically to Native populations and Native communities. So it took a long time. I think she had to raise like $500,000 to get this going. But when she left, I was able to finish it and push it to the finish line. So I'm going to bring you to this tool because it's just really valuable. And it's nativephilanthropy.candid.org. So here we go. This is the face of the page. You'll see at the top, it says funding map. So let's go there. So the funding map will tell you, and this is specifically to the US, it's not giving us like the First Nations info. Maybe someday, we'll be looking at a more like, holistic picture. But if you go to explore the map, it'll give you some information right up front. So the funding that is coming, to Candid to be put through the portal is done from tax documents. So there's usually like a 2-year lag, but let's go to the actual, okay, there we go. So when you get to the funding map, you can put in what you're looking for. You can put in funders. So if you see at the top left of the page, that's where we're going to go for funders, because we want to know, who those funders are. And we can put in a topic area. So whatever topic you're interested in, and you probably should do multiple topics so you can kind of, really see who's funding what different programmatic parts of your organization. So we have funders in there. Let's go to California and see who the funders are in California. So we put in California and it gives us the top funders for California. Now, oftentimes I have been surprised about some of the things that have come up when it comes to a lot of these funding, the funders. And if you already know these folks, great, but it's important to be able to know them well. So for example, Tides Foundation, so Return to the Heart did get funding from Tides just lately, a couple months ago. And what they gave us was a Get to Know You grant. And that's very common, very, very common with public or with private funders. They'll just give you like 25, maybe even 50,000. Just, you're not applying. It's based on like either a quick phone call. For us, it wasn't even a call. They just like gave it to us. We would like to support you. And there's no restrictions. So it's, general operations, spend it however you want, but it starts the relationship. So from here on out, we are now a grantee. We are beginning that relationship. We will probably have, maybe a couple phone calls during the year. They're watching us, they're following us, and they are going to decide if they want to invest even further. So that Get to Know You grant, which was, it was small, it was the 25, it may be 150 next year. Depending on, how our values and their values and programmatic funding streams line up. It could be, 200, it could be more. So, we don't really know, how fruitful that's going to be, but, it's very important to know who your funders are. So let's go to the next slide and look at who they're funding. Oh, okay. So now you can start to get to know the funder a little bit better. So you can see like, okay, so this is just 2,000. That's their latest set from the tax documents, and or funders can submit to the portal or to Candid, so then they can upload it. So it looks like they did the Brave Heart Society. So you can also see like where they're funding geographically. Native American Voters Alliance Education Project. So that's one particular project under that stream. Oh, okay. So NDN got funded, Indigenous Environmental Network, Tewa Women's United. So, you know, it just kind of gives you examples. You can also look and see like, what are the trends? Like, did they fund anybody like twice, like 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row? Do they do multi-year funding? And you see, yes, they do. Some folks only got funded once. So, you know, it depends on the project. It depends on, you know, a lot of different factors, but they were a big giver in supporting Native projects. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, here's another one. Let's just check another top funder, Christensen Fund. And who are they funding? Oh, they're funding land trust. Is that an area that your organization is moving towards? You know, purchasing land. So that's, you know, another you know, way of investigating and getting to know who the funding landscape, you know, is. So let's go to the next slide. I feel like I need to wrap this up. So I wanted to mention power mapping. And if folks would do me a favor, and if you have done power mapping for funder engagement, please give me a thumbs up in the chat box. I'd love to see, you know, how many folks are doing this. There's lots of different models for power mapping. And honestly, I don't necessarily love any of them. But if you're new to power mapping, I would think of it as like, maybe you've never had Italian food and somebody gives you lasagna and you like it pretty much, but you don't, you know, maybe not your favorite in the whole world, but there's a whole world of different types of food. Same thing with power mapping. So many different models, so many ways you can do it. And I would do what works for you. And basically it's going to help you identify, you know, a plan. You know, how do I get to meet the CEO of Christensen Fund and or program officer, and or is there anybody on the board who will do an introduction? Maybe you know somebody who's on the board who would, you know, do an introduction so that you can be on their radar. So I put this map out there, but I feel like I'm running out of time. So I want to get, you know, give our other speaker a chance soon. But here's a quick little checklist. It's actually 2 pages. And if you would, we have 3 icons here. If you're confident in doing this, that would be a heart. An X that nope, we're not doing it. And then you're not there yet would be the arrow. So I think one slide back. There we go. So are you visible in social media? Is your website, you know, outstanding? So if you are, just go ahead and you can click the heart. Have you invested in communications? A lot of times, you know, folks are just piecemealing it together. It's like 10% of somebody's job. But that visibility is everything when it comes to private funding. Is it easy? Are you making that platter easy for folks to get to know you? Such as the sign up now for your newsletter button. Are you sending regular email blasts? How well do you know your landscape? Can you name the top 5, maybe even 8, if you already got 5 funders in your area who are in your funding, you know, realm? Next slide. Have you started a power map or a strategic engagement plan for meeting those top funders? Is your donation button there? If it's not, how can they easily fund you? One tool that I didn't put in here that I absolutely love is Act Blue. Act Blue takes, I think, 2% of donations, but it makes it so easy to put a button on any event that you do, and they give you reports and they'll ping you. You'll know exactly when a donation comes in, and they have a button for monthly donations. So even a private individual can decide, you know, I'm going to give this organization $50 a month, and it just comes automatically. Here's another important thing on your checklist. Do you have a plan on paper that includes leadership, your board, staff, roles and responsibilities? Who's going to be doing this? So that intention behind engaging private funders. And then regular calls with your funders. And then this is really important. Have you asked your funders if they know of anybody else who will fund their work? So the one multi-year funder that I said was the one that came out of the tweet just lately, probably I think it was in May, introduced us to 2 other funders, and one of them picked us right up. So it was just like quick and easy. Again, funders listen to other funders. Next slide. So, I leave you with this. In order to heal and rebuild, we have to shift the narrative so that those who can make a difference are able to, and so that the work will change the world. And we need change so direly right now. So thank you. I look forward to the folks who are joining the breakout, and I'll pass it on back to our host.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gina, for an awesome presentation. So we'll now welcome our second speaker, Raynell Gould. So please use your heart emojis in the chat box to welcome her.
I'm sorry about that. My internet is acting crazy. Anyways, hello everyone. I'm Raynell, and my last name is Qaniigix, meaning snowflake, and I'm from the Oglala tribe from King Cove, Alaska. I'm just going to keep this kind of brief, but I've been writing and managing federal grants for over about 18 years now, and I've been writing for nonprofits and tribes, and presently I'm the grants manager for Nakui. You can go to the next slide. So the grant life cycle basically starts out with the pre-award, where your organization finds there's a need for a program, like there's a gap, whether it be like domestic violence and you want to start a program for teens or something like that. So you find this gap, and then we go along and find a grant, and we get into that later, but then you have your application and you get your council or board approval and you submit your grant. That's involved for your pre-award. Your post-award is after you get the grant, you get the notice of award, terms and conditions, and they tell you, okay, you got this grant, so now this is what we want you to do financially and programs, and you do progress reports and such, and have an orientation. And then the next cycle would be the grants management. So then this is where you're managing and putting it into implementation and making sure all goes well, and hopefully you're right on track and you're making the progress that you're saying you're going to be having, the outcomes that you expect. And then at the end of the cycle, you have your closeout where you submit your final reports, and hopefully you'll get funded in the future. Okay, next slide. So you want to be prepared for your grant proposal and get a strategy going. And so you want to just make sure that you're ready to get going right from the beginning, and you want to make sure that your mission aligns with your funder. Otherwise, they're not going to be looking at your proposal and your project won't be a success. Determine best funder, you want to base it because you'll
It's looking like we're having some technical difficulties. We will wait just a couple more minutes for Raynell to get back on. In the meantime, I think we can just start thinking about some of the things that we had gone through today, especially with Gina, and kind of what Raynell has started to think about. So please if you have any questions that you have for Gina, please go ahead and start putting them in the chat box, and we can start answering them as we get Raynell back on the line.
Raynell is back on the line.
Okay, Raynell is back on the line. There we go.
just so you know,
There you are.
I'm in Alaska, and our weather and connection is just terrible today, of course.
No worries.
And so, yeah, so we could go to the next slide. I'm not sure how long you want to go through the slides. I mean, a lot of this I'll be going through in our breakout. We don't have a lot of time with the breakouts either, but you know, like Gina was mentioning, different ways of finding grants. There's foundation grants, corporate grants, and federal grants. And you can go to the next slide. And so tips to organize, you want to make sure you're ready when you get started to save time. For myself, like I said, I've been writing for a long time. I write a lot of federal grants. And so I have checklists and templates with all the information that I commonly use. I do a pre-application planning meeting with the department, with the director and program staff, myself, CFO, if the person is available. And the pre-application meeting, I have a grant summary that has a one-shot glance of what the grant is, the due date, the funding amount, any restrictions, the focus areas. So we can just take a quick look at that and make a game plan of how we're going to get the application written and on time. And then I also have a common documents folder that I keep all the common documents like the 501c3 verification, I-990, resumes, and anything in the 501c3 verification, or excuse me, the indirect cost agreement and different documents that is used with most applications. Next. And so the typical grant components are normally like these listed, but not always. But you have the title page and a cover letter saying who you are, what you're applying for. You have that summary, which is basically saying, again, what you're applying for, why you need it. You have your institutional background, saying who you are, the demographics that you serve, your location, and what kind of services you provide. You have your needs assessment or problem statement saying what your need is and how did you come about it with different facts or data like surveys or things of that nature. And you have your program goal, what you want to achieve from this project, your objectives. It's very specific and concise of how you're going to get to your goal and activities. And then your implementation plan involves how you're going to get there, you know, what activities are involved, who's going to be implementing the plan of staff, and what kind of again, activities are important. The evaluation plan, how are you going to measure it, whether it be through like data, surveys, have your milestones of how you're going to sustain it after funding in. Funders love to know how you're going to provide if they get you started. Sure that your budget is very reasonable and that you also have those budget items in the narrative explaining why you need narrative as well. And then the other documents, like I mentioned, like resumes, 501c3 status, indirect cost agreement, things of those natures. Next slide. And then if you get awarded the grants, that's great. And you get your grants management. So from there, you want to make sure you thank the donor, funder, and because a lot of times people forget that, to thank them. And it's important because you want them to know that they're appreciated, and also they'll remember that, and then you can come back and get more funding, hopefully. Then you'll get an award contract that outlines all the components and responsibilities of your grant and what you're going to be, how much you are receiving, the project period, the contact information, and the legal components of it as well. And the project implementation, like I mentioned, I do a post-award meeting after a grant is awarded, where I meet with the staff and program and go through the award document with them and just refresh again of what we are doing, the goals, objectives, also outline the progress report phase, what is, and go through the budget. And the CFO is usually there to help with that, and tracking and making sure that we're on track and collecting the data and having milestones complete. And we also use Asana. It's a program management tool that helps keep things on track. And then at the end of the cycle, we do a closeout and thank the vendor, and any closeout activities they require, we follow through with that. Next slide. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raynell, for that awesome presentation. So we'll quickly move into the breakout session activities that you all have pre-selected when you registered. So when the pop-up appears on your screen, please click the join button and you'll be taken to your breakout room. Welcome back, everyone. I know that people had some questions that were being answered in the breakout rooms, and they may have been cut off, so we truly apologize for that. And you definitely can continue to post in the chat box. If you have any remaining questions, we will definitely get them to our speakers. If you have any burning questions that need to be answered, but we definitely need to move on. And we thank you so much for being patient and flexible with us. So again, yes, so your feedback is super important. We welcome any of it. We do have our survey posted in the chat box. And we thank you for joining the Culture Indigenous approach to writing grants to private funders. And again, we thank our wonderful speakers, Gina, Jackson, and Raynell. We have upcoming events. Again, we have the part 2 of Board of Directors Workshops, Community Leadership Tactics on Friday, October 15th. And we have the remaining 2 sections of charting our course, navigating funding streams to support your health programs, which occur on November 3rd and 16th. And the links to those will be posted in the chat as well. And we are at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please, if you are part of this, if you're part of the Chart of the Course group, please feel free to complete that evaluation survey at your leisure. If you're part of the Board of Directors, we have a 10-minute break waiting for you. So we'll see you back promptly at 3:10 p.m. to continue our sessions. Thank you again, Gina and Raynell. We really appreciate both of you today.
Bye, everyone.